not gun people.
Okay. All right. Well, listen, we're going to talk more about this with Laura Carno, our guest co-host this hour. Tim Knight of the Basic Freedom Defense Fund. Luke Wagner of the Colorado Second Amendment Association is going to be with us as well. Later in the hour, Mr. Scott Bach, Executive Director of the Association of New Jersey Rifle and Pistol Clubs, member of the NRA's Board of Directors, is going to join us on the program. But right now, I want to bring into the show another sports-themed shirt, by the way. Spiders, though. University of Richmond Spiders, sported by our friend Dave Adams, the Legislative Affairs Director for the Virginia Shooting Sports Association. How are you, sir?
I'm great, Cam, and I also came bearing gifts for you, too.
Oh, my goodness. Look at this. This is amazing. This is like Christmas. I don't deserve all of this. Thank you so much. A Spiders camo hat.
Yes.
Awesome. I love this. You know, the Spiders have one of the best college nicknames, I think, in the country.
I think so.
It's good to see you here. It's funny that we, fly halfway across the country. Considering we live in the same state. But I'm glad to see you here in Indy this year.
I think we've done this several times now, haven't we?
We have, yeah. It just goes to show how busy Dave is, how busy we are here at NRA News. And we've got great news to report because yesterday the Virginia General Assembly met in their, it's not a veto session, but it's in essence a session to deal with what the governor did with legislative items throughout the course of the legislative session, right?
Yeah, everybody refers to it as a veto session. It's actually referred to as a reconvene because they deal with amendments as well as dealing with vetoes.
Okay, and there was one bill that Governor McAuliffe had messed with, right? This was a good bill. Am I correct in that?
It was an okay bill.
It was an okay bill.
Yeah.
And he made it a bad bill?
He made it a bad bill.
Okay. Was the General Assembly able to make it an okay bill again?
They sent it back to him the way it was passed originally, so now he gets the opportunity to either sign it as it was passed without his amendment or to veto it.
Okay. Now, what happens if he vetoes it?
That's it.
That's it?
Yep.
Okay. Huh. That's interesting. Virginia legislative politics is a little unusual. So there is no true veto session then. The governor gets the final say?
He does get the final say unless they override a veto.
Okay.
They can override it and pass it in the enrolled form, and he doesn't get any say in that. But if he adds an amendment to something and they don't like it, then he still has the final say on either signing it or doing away with it by veto.
Okay. Now, what was interesting about this this bill yesterday, you pointed this out on Sportsman Channel yesterday afternoon. In the Senate, which is very, very closely divided between Democrats and Republicans, the vote to restore the bill to its original language was not as close. There were some Democrats who crossed over, in other words, right?
Right. There was three of them, in fact. One I expected to see, Senator Cray Deeds. He generally is with us. He kind of left the reservation on the gun show issue, but everything else he's been with us. Chap Peterson, who is with us sometimes isn't, a Northern Virginia Democrat, voted to oppose the amendment, as well as Linwood Lewis, who has an A rating with the NRA, so that didn't surprise me.
I'm just putting on my Spiders hat. Here we go. Sorry about that. Okay, so you had, and this is interesting again because Northern Virginia Democrats voting for this. This also kind of came up during Sunday hunting in Virginia, where you had some Northern Virginia Democrats vote in favor of starting to allow some Sunday hunting.
Yeah, actually, they were big supporters of that every year it came up, which is what those who were opposed to Sunday hunting would say. It was a bunch of urbanites trying to come in and stick their nose into the hunting issue, where the hunters, there were a number of hunters were opposed to Sunday hunting, and so they tried to use that against us. But the folks up in Northern Virginia, they know what, crashing into a deer with a vehicle does, because it happens a lot in Northern Virginia.
Yeah, it does. And also, too, look, as somebody who's lived in the D.C. suburbs and now doesn't, who now lives in the wilds of Virginia, I can tell you not only are there plenty of Virginians who live in urban areas who are hunters, who, again, may not be able to get out Monday through Friday, and they may have things going on Saturday. To give them the ability to go out and hunt on private land on a Sunday, I think is going to help, those people who don't have easy access they can't just walk out their backyard and climb into their tree stand. It actually takes some time. And we want to encourage opportunities for people who live, whether it's a big city or a big suburban area like Fairfax County. We want to make it possible for more people to get out and actually participate in hunting, participate in fishing, just getting outdoors. And this, I think, is a big step forward for that.
I think it was a great compromise, too. It's only on private property. There are several interests that have lined up in the past to oppose Sunday hunting. The horse community, the equine community, and of course you've got the Virginia Farm Bureau, and that's the one I really can't figure out why they're against it. But you've got the bicycle folks who want to ride bikes on Sunday afternoon on state property or public property.
Right.
So this makes those areas off limits to hunting. It gives those people who have access to private property, who would like to hunt on Sundays, the opportunity to get out there and do it. The economy has been tough now for 5 years. A lot of people work on Saturdays, and they have to work during the week. They may be working 2 jobs. Sunday may be the only day they can get out there. Why do we want to discourage opportunities for folks to get out into the woods? So I think it's a great compromise.
Generally speaking, again, we were talking with Laura a few minutes ago. Mayor Bloomberg, when he was on the Today Show, he talked about the passage of the Colorado gun control laws. Didn't talk about the recall elections there in Colorado, but he did bring up the election of Governor Terry McAuliffe in Virginia. See, he didn't want to talk about the recalls in Colorado, but he did want to talk about the governor's race in Virginia. Very selective, this Mayor Bloomberg is, when he wants to talk about what's going on in elections around the country, because, Dave, he's trying to make the case that that this was an anti-gun vote that put Terry McAuliffe in office in Virginia. Do you buy that?
What he doesn't tell people is that for most of the campaign, Terry McAuliffe did everything he could to avoid talking about the gun issue. It wasn't until most polls showed him up by 10 points that he decided he was going to go out there and campaign on gun control. He then took Bloomberg money, and a 10-point lead ended up being a 2-point win. So I think it actually went against him. And for the folks who don't follow Virginia politics, there was a lot more involved in that loss of Ken Cuccinelli than just the gun issue. And in fact, I think that had we had a couple more weeks, Cuccinelli would have won that, partly because Terry McAuliffe decided to talk about gun control.
Yeah, and it's interesting, again, I guess if Bloomberg's theory is correct, and this was a wave vote in favor of gun control in Virginia, he would have had some coattails. There would have been other races that you could point to, state representative races, state senator races, and instead what happened was, 67 A-rated General Assembly members won election this year, right? Was it 67?
Yeah, that's right. And in fact, he played heavily in a couple of those races, and he ended up losing. Barbara Comstock, just to name one, up in the Northern Virginia area, who is now a candidate for Congress in the 10th Congressional District. She pulled that out, and he spent a lot of money for her opponent.
Interesting. So I think it's always fascinating to kind of get beyond the hype and get beyond the spin and actually see what's actually going on here. I mean, Bloomberg, let me ask you this, Laura. What can $50 million buy Michael Bloomberg?
It's interesting because every time he puts money into something, he loses. Even though he's calling the recalls a win because he's ignoring the recalls and just talking about the gun control bills, he also put money into Colorado's $1 billion annual tax increase that failed. I was watching Tony Katz's coverage this morning at the, I'll call it the protest in air quotes, that got 25 people or so. I'm not sure that he can buy the numbers of people to support his gun control ideas in the way that he wants to talk about them. So I don't know that $50 million from Bloomberg, because of his reputation of being sort of that nanny state guy, I don't think it buys as much as a freedom-loving person who really wants to take government off of people's shoulders.
Yeah, I mean, this is, I think, one of the big issues is that, you look at what's going on in this country, whether you agree or disagree with things like Colorado legalizing marijuana, right, or the gay marriage debate. a pro-freedom case can be made for every one of these issues. Again, I'm not saying you have to agree with it, but the expansion of human liberty, the expansion of the sphere of human liberty and what you as an American get to do, which shows me and tells me that liberty and freedom and independence is still very important to a lot of Americans. It's really hard to spin, we want to take away your guns, as a pro-freedom, pro-liberty message, right?
Right. It's very, as you call it, the betters versus the bumpkins. We know better than you. And what's fascinating to me about the Virginia Sunday hunting story, you take a step back and you say, gosh, on one day of the week, the government tells you what you may and may not do on private property. I mean, take hunting, take guns out of it. Really? Is that the government that we think we have? What if they said we couldn't go? Oh, they can't. They do tell you in certain states you can't go to the liquor store. And I think those sorts of things, people just think isn't a legitimate use of government force.
Yeah, which is interesting because in Virginia, you always could go to the liquor store on Sunday.
No, that's
not always.
ABC stores were closed for quite a while. And
oh, really?
I think most of them still are. But you can buy beer at grocery store, but ABC stores for quite a while were not open on Sunday.
Let me introduce you to a couple of ABC stores that I know that are open on Sunday next time we get back to Virginia, Dave, because I've never run into that problem. But I've only lived in the state for 10 years. Listen, Dave, I thank you so much for coming on the program. It's great to see you here in Indianapolis, and I'm looking forward to seeing you in Virginia actually soon as well.
I'm looking forward to it, too.
All right, Dave Adams, thank you, by the way, for the Spiders
welcome.
hat. Once more, the Richmond Spiders in camo. I love it. When we come back, our friend Tim Knight from the Basic Freedom Defense Fund, Luke Wagner of the Colorado Second Amendment Association is going to join us. Stick around. We've got much more NRA News, Cam and Company coming up right after this from Indianapolis, Indiana, and the site of the 2014 NRA annual meeting.